Welcome to Parenting Trap, episode 26.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parenting Trap. First, we want to talk about Paloma Verde. They sell amazing, high-quality CBD oil. Please order from them to support them and support us. Barbara has some.
This is a little CBD oil. Yeah, it's a little oil, CBD oil. It's completely THC free, so you don't need to worry about it making you groggy or getting you high. And they sent us a nice little sample pack, which was really exciting. They had gummies. I really enjoyed their salve. It was a really nice salve. You could put it on your hands or wherever. I think it's supposed to help with pain, so that if you use it topically, it can help with a little bit of pain.
And you've had some pain in your hands, right? You're right. Barbara's been wearing a brace like the last several days, huh?
Yes, I have. I have kind of a arthritis and problem with my thumb. So it was really nice to use that product and kind of get to test it out in that way. So anyway, if you want to support them, that actually helps support us. So if you use the code PT25, you will get 25% off any order $75 or more. And I can recommend, I think I've tried pretty much everything now. I mean, at least their sample pack, and it's all really great. I highly recommend it. So it's PT25 to get 25% off any order $75 or more. Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So today we wanted to talk about body autonomy and how we very radically believe that we should give kids as much body autonomy as possible. And so we want to talk about what that looks like, especially with babies, because you kind of think, okay, well, a baby can't communicate, but I think you'd be surprised that how well they can communicate. And the only time that I would say body autonomy should be violated is if it is a safety reason or holding a limit, like not, you don't want them to touch the garbage, so you will pick them up and move their body, physically move their body, without, so then you're kind of violating their body autonomy in that way, but we're holding a hard limit and we have to do that for them because they can't keep themselves safe and they don't understand all the reasons why we do certain things.
Right.
Oh, sorry, my headphone just blinked out. Yeah, so that's what we're thinking about talking about today.
Yeah. I think a lot of people might have the question, how do you give such young children autonomy because they don't know what's best for themselves? And
yes,
that's something I've heard.
Yes. And then there's a lot of gray area, like a toddler who doesn't want his diaper changed. But if a dirty diaper stays on long enough, it can cause a rash and that will hurt him. Actually, I found my oldest was very prone to diaper rash, and it got really bad and it was very painful for him to do diaper changes. So it made him not want to do diaper changes, which made the rash even worse. So the problem I was trying to solve was what he was reacting against when he didn't want to do them. So there are situations where we will have to violate a child's autonomy. But in general, I would really stress thinking hard if it's worth it. Is this actually a limit that I need to hold and violate their autonomy for? And you should decrease that list as much as possible. Because I think it's really important that we give our kids autonomy over their bodies.
The more that I think sometimes we have this thing in the back of our mind, like we think something's important until we really think about what would happen if, let's say, we don't change that diaper when they're not ready. That they don't always need to change their diaper when we're ready. We should give them an opportunity to let them be ready. Or if you don't need to get out the door right away, maybe not forcing to go out the door. Now, if you need to be somewhere on time, then you can struggle and put your struggling child into their car seat to get to, say, a doctor's appointment on time. But if your plans are more flexible, allowing your child to sort of take their time might be worth it, because the more often we get into these power struggles, it makes more power struggles. Like our child feels less in control, and they should have some say in their day-to-day. They shouldn't just go along with what we want to do all day long. That's not fair. That's not fair, because they really don't get a say, especially young children.
And so, oh my gosh, there's so much there. Kids are just like us. They really are. We are all people with feelings, and it's important that we empathize with them. Nobody likes being manipulated, told what to do, you know, not having freedom. I think a lot of people, I mean, honestly, I think we have so many adults now who are willing to give up their freedoms because they were parented in a way where they started to question themselves. When we parent and we're like, we're the parent and you have to follow orders, then we are telling kids that their self, like their own personal interests and desires, are not important. And it makes them question whether or not they are even capable of making life decisions themselves. And they'll start to look to us for the answers, right?
Yeah. And when they don't have us, or when they've kind of grown out of, let's say, I mean, kids do want to kind of go off on their own, or sometimes we're not always around, or they don't want to ask us certain questions because eventually you get older and things get awkward, all of that. But then they'll seek other authority and not trust us as much. So, and that's really,
that's like a recipe for disaster. No, I don't want my kids ever following anyone blindly because they're an authority figure. I think that has caused so many problems throughout history, right? I want my kids to be able to think for themselves and act in their own best interest without hurting anyone. And ideally not hurting themselves too. So, giving our young kids, that freedom, that body autonomy, and starting as young as possible and giving them as much freedom as possible is such an amazing gift.
Yeah. And sometimes that means, you're trying to get out the door to go to the park, and your kid said they wanted to go to the park, but they're struggling really bad to get there. And instead they're playing in the sandbox in the backyard. And instead of having that power struggle with them to get them in the car to get them to the park, maybe you say, oh, okay, it looks like you're still wanting to do that. And it could even be that 2 hours later they say, hey, I want to go to the park. And you realize you don't have time anymore. That's what we talked about last time. It's a natural consequence.
Yes.
They're realizing.
If you do that, you would have to pose the question. So I wouldn't say like, oh, it's time to go to the park, and then see that they're having a good time and not ask them the question. But definitely if they're having a good time, say, hey, I noticed that you're having fun in the sandbox and you're not really wanting to go to the park right now. Do you want to go to the park now or stay here? If you stay here, we will not be able to go later. I usually like to tell them the consequence then, and it doesn't mean that they won't get upset later. They probably will. They often do, but that's okay. That's an emotional response to a choice that they made, and it's a learning experience.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. And maybe you do have time to go to the park too. So you can always keep that in mind too. Maybe you have a more flexible schedule, and if you go to the park at 3 instead of at 10 a.m., it's fine. And these are the kinds of things that allow kids to learn that their actions kind of have this cascading effect in the world, and they're realizing that they have power over their day. And then later on, it also helps them. I mean, and they don't start thinking this way at the age of 3, but as they get older and older, they start to be able to see into the future. They start to be able to understand that my decision right now might have an effect on that later. And part of that's the learning. And if we're always the ones that make those choices for them, then they will never have an opportunity. They can always defer blame as to why they didn't get to do what they wanted to do, or why something went a way they didn't want it to. But when we allow them to make these choices, they learn so much about themselves, and they learn so much about making decisions, and how some decisions are ones that they are really unhappy with, and how some are great decisions that they, they can be happy that they made. So, not
Yes.
every decision that they make is going to be one that results to them not being able to go to the park.
Yes.
So,
And I would say young kids do need some guidance. Like, they don't understand what all the choices are in the world to choose. Also, when there are too many choices, it's hard to make any decision at all.
yes.
So I think it's okay to give young children two options: stay home or go to the park. Or would you like spaghetti or rice? Something, two options. If you start getting, as they get older, you can give them a little bit more, but even then you don't want to overwhelm them with options.
You don't. It's like opening the drawer, like the clothes drawer, and being like, what do you want to wear to your 2-year-old? It's going to be too much of a decision for them. You kind of do the, like, this shirt or that shirt, and you allow them to choose. And maybe they will ask specifically, oh, I want to wear the shirt with the cat on it. And then you go, oh yeah, that's clean, I'll go get it for you. And you can honor that request. But yeah, too many choices. I mean, I think even adults struggle with too many choices often. Certainly an overstimulated and dysregulated 2-year-old and 3-year-old would struggle with that too.
Yes.
So that's a good point. I'm going to make a note, and this is something that I think is important. We say give choices. Be very cautious not to give false choices to your child. So I don't know if we've mentioned this on a show before, but I really like this concept. So we sometimes try to give our child choices that only we like are the only acceptable answers are the ones that we think are acceptable. So we never give our child a choice that we don't want to do. And I think that that's something to keep in mind, because if you're giving your child what appears to be a choice, well, you decided that you wanted to go, to the park today, and that's what you chose. But let's say your kid was asking to, go to the zoo, and that could have been an option, but you just didn't feel like driving a little bit further. Do you really, you don't have to, but I'm just saying, like, can you make time for those decisions in your day? And
right, but wouldn't a false choice be saying something like, if you're upset or annoyed, don't use sarcasm with your young children. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a sarcastic response, like, well, do you want, cookies for dessert or Brussels sprouts? Thinking that, you're being funny. And sometimes it's done funny. And if you do that, actually, that's kind of good. But some people use it in a way that is not funny, like they're trying to make a point. I can't think of an example right now. So that response, that one is actually kind of funny, and I have used sarcasm in that way with my kids.
The older kids, I think, yeah, and it really depends what you mean. But like, I think I even mean false choice. Like, do you want to wear the red shirt or the green shirt? And your child prefers to wear no shirt at all, and then they'll go red because their favorite color is red, and then you start putting it on them, and then they're like, no shirt, and you're like, but you chose the red one. This is the one you chose, and you're trying to like forcefully get it on them, but you really know that what they want is to wear no shirt at all. So that's kind of what I mean by false choice, where it's like you're kind of making it seem like whatever it was that they did choose was what they wanted, but this is what you wanted. And it's not really. You knew deep down that your kid wasn't going to want it, and then you're trying to use their choice against them. So
don't do that. In that case, I would say empathize with a kid and say, I hear that you don't want to wear a shirt. We have to wear one if we're going to go to the store or whatever it is. We have to wear one because we're going to the store. Do you want the red or blue? And then they won't feel tricked. Yeah, don't trick your kids. They are smart, and it insults their intelligence. It makes them not trust you as much. Like, I don't know. I just hate that. I hate seeing that. That's true. Yeah. That's a very good point.
Right. And it for sure is, violating their autonomy, because you are giving them a false sense of autonomy there. This choice that doesn't really exist, right?
You're not
choices. aren't completely free.
Yeah. That's true. But I would say it is okay to violate their autonomy when you're holding boundaries, like you have to put clothes on to go to the store. Um, and yeah, the difference would be, but you chose this, you have to put it on,
Yeah.
and invalidating their experience, which is really they just don't want to wear it at all. So just validate their experience, validate the emotions. I hear that you don't want to wear a shirt. And if you don't know if they will put up a fight or not, you don't have to start off like that. Don't start off like that if you don't know, because
Right.
then you'll just be setting yourself up for a fight. Like, look, we might have a fight right now, but don't do that. Because then if you do that almost 100% of the time, the kids will then put up a fight because you've put it in their heads.
You put up this expectation. Yeah.
Right. Kids are very, like, you can suggest things to kids, especially very young kids. They're very susceptible to that. And I would say don't abuse that power. I hate that. So that should never be done. We should avoid that as much as possible. Hopefully avoid it completely. Just don't do it. And just realize that when you hold limits, it's going to be hard for them, and that's okay. Those emotional experiences are fine for them. They can have those big reactions, and that's normal.
Yeah. I want to take a little bit of a tangent here and maybe talk a bit about babies, because we mentioned, I think you might have said babies earlier, and if not, we're bringing it up now. But I do want to say that you can actually do this with children as young as babies, like brand new children. So we obviously need to care for our child. They rely on us. An infant really requires us to get them from one room to another. They're not really mobile yet. They're not verbal yet. Though they can communicate to us in little ways if we're really paying attention. And the way you start to get this idea into your child that they have autonomy is by warning them what you're going to do before you do it. I think a really fun analogy is picture that you are a very old person. I think this is like Ahmad Gerber talks about this. Imagine that you're old and you no longer can communicate very well. You are infirmed. Let's say you don't have control over your muscles and you're bedridden. And you have people that come in and care for you. How do you want your days to look? Do you want somebody to come and let you know, I'm gonna, help you get off your shirt. We're gonna get in the shower now. And then you hopefully have some time to process that and move on to the next step. And the person can let you know what they're doing each step of the way. It's no different with infants. They deserve to know what's occurring to their body, what's happening with their body, and what parts of their body that you're touching. And that also empowers them. It empowers the baby to be prepared and eventually communicate whether or not that's something that they're ready for. I know with both my infants, when I would say, are you ready for me to pick you up? By just a few weeks, it was really clear that they were ready for me to pick them up. And it was amazing to see.
It's so crazy.
Yeah,
it is. They brace their bodies. You can see their facial expression acknowledges you, and they will sometimes they'll kick their legs and put their arms out. They'll brace their bodies. When you pick up a baby, they usually tense their muscles in a way that's kind of cooperative. If you ever pick up a young child, like a baby that doesn't want to be picked up, you will know the difference between a child that is happy being picked up and one that's not. The one that's not will flop, usually do a back bend, try to wiggle to get away. And yeah, just infants really, I mean, didn't it start at like 1 or 2 months with your kids, Barbara?
I remember with my oldest, I believe I started noticing, I noticed it during diaper changes too, where I'd ask him, and I think I've told the story before, I'd say, I do all the steps, and I'd be like putting back on the diaper, and I'd say, can you straighten your legs? And I'd give him a few moments, and then I'd straighten his legs for him. And I believe he was just like, he was so young. He was like 3 weeks old or something when I felt he like actually straightened his legs. So much younger than even I was expecting. And I was expecting it to occur really young, right? So it blew my mind, like how early on he very much understood what I was requesting and he was prepared for it. So
that is so amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, don't underestimate the ability for your child to communicate to you what they're ready for and what they're not ready for.
And that they do understand what you're saying. Speak slowly. You can repeat yourself and give them a little bit of time, and they understand so much. I mean, they're just taking it all in. It's amazing. My kids did not have that because I did not discover RIE, RIE. It's called what is it? Resources for Infant Educators.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? I didn't discover that until after my youngest was born, and he was gosh, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months or something. So I didn't start. And when I first learned about it, I actually read about it and I thought, well, this sounds crazy. This is radical. This is ridiculous, right? Just change the baby's diaper. Just don't, like, why do you need to go through all these extra steps? It also seemed pretty callous to a lot of people who are attachment parents or peaceful parents. They don't like RIE because RIE says it's okay for a baby to cry. And they think that means you should neglect your baby if your baby's crying and not offer any comfort. And that's not what that means. It just means if they cry,
yeah.
Yep. If they cry, it's not like we need to make sure their needs are met. They're fed, they're warm, they have everything they need. We can offer comfort if they want comfort. But it's also okay for them to cry. So an example of this would be my oldest hated car rides for years. And he hated being in his car seat. He hated it so much. He would be in it maybe 5 minutes before he would start screaming. And the grocery store was maybe 10 minutes away. I mean, it wasn't even that. It was probably closer than that. But he would scream the whole way there. And I just remember thinking, oh no, his brain is like, he feels abandoned. I'm not supposed to let my baby cry. He's starting to feel not attached to me. He thinks that I put him in here and I'm mean or whatever. And RIE says, no, that's okay. As long as you calmly explain, I'm putting you in your car seat now. We have to go to the store. If they get upset or protest, I hear that you don't like that. I see that you don't like that. We have to go to the store. And it's okay for them to cry. You just let them cry. You can empathize and continue to say, I hear you. You really don't like that. But you can also just leave it at that. And that's okay. You're not hurting your baby.
Right.
By doing that, which was a huge relief to hear because
huge relief, yeah.
Yeah, if you buy into the attachment parenting, peaceful parenting thing, you think that your baby crying is actually hurting them, and it gets you in this vicious cycle of trying to correct it. Then they look to you anytime they're upset because they learned that we are the solution to their problems. And then it's super hard breaking out of that when they enter into toddler and young child phase. So I would say don't get involved in that trap. It's okay if kids cry. Of any age, it's okay if they cry as long as their needs are being met and you're empathetic and you love them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another good example that's used frequently, and I think a lot of moms can relate to this, is it feels like sometimes we don't even get to go to the bathroom in private, right? And that's another instance where, you might have a 5-month-old or in a safe space, maybe a pack and play, and you can set them down and say, I'm going to leave now. I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'll be back in a couple minutes. And they might cry, but you don't hesitate. You kind of do your thing confidently. You walk out. Don't take extra time in the bathroom. You don't need to be dilly-dallying or anything, but you get back and you can say, oh, I'm back now. And they start to learn that you're reliable. You follow through on your word, which is you did leave and that you did come back, all of which are very important. And they learn to be able to kind of cope and self-soothe as you do that. They can worry less about whether or not you're going to be coming back when you're reliable on your word, and they can focus on whatever they want to do instead. And they learn that
yes.
over time.
I would just add that it's okay to make limits and take time for yourself. So don't think that leaving your baby to cry must only be done in situations like having to go to the bathroom or driving to like the restaurant or whatever it is. Meaning driving to the restaurant, meaning like the baby in the car seat. Don't leave your baby at home alone.
Don't leave your baby at home and go to the restaurant. That would never be anything we would be okay with. Yeah.
Right. No, I meant like in the car. Anyway, my point is, we cannot be our best selves. Our kids do better when we are patient and loving with them, and we cannot do that if we don't fill our own cups first. So if you need a moment to breathe, like you're feeling yourself triggered or anything, you can take a few minutes in the bathroom and chill. Like you can take that extra time, or go to your bedroom or whatever it is. It's better that we take that time and they're upset for a little bit longer so we can be our better selves for them. It's worse for them if we come in and we are short and angry and resentful that we had to rush this and we didn't have a moment to breathe.
Right. No, that's a very good point. Yeah. But what does all this have to do with autonomy? Should we bring it back around? I think we should bring it back around because
yes, we kind of went on a tangent.
No, I know it was a little bit my fault for sure. I think it required some clarification.
It's that babies, we can start giving kids autonomy over their bodies from birth, starting from birth. Look into Magda Gerber, look into Janet Lansbury. Tell your child what you are doing to them when you're doing a diaper change, when you're putting them to bed, when you're getting them dressed, putting them in the car seat. Tell them beforehand, say it slowly. You can even repeat it and then do it. And also respect their autonomy whenever you can, again, starting in infancy. So like if Barbara I have a wonderful niece who just turned 1. And for a while there, when she was a newborn, she didn't care who held her because she's a newborn. But then eventually babies go through that phase. What is it? Oh my gosh, the stranger phase where, what is it called? Mother attachment. I can't remember.
Sorry. Yeah. I'll think of it and then I'll say it in just a moment, probably in the middle of a sentence that you're trying to explain.
Thank you. But they'll go through a phase where they have very strong preferences for their mothers, and they don't want anyone else to hold them. And she went through that. And I didn't take it personally, and I didn't force it and say, well, I'm going to hold you and teach you that I'm a safe person by holding you and being nice. I would say, I would get near her and actually I usually wouldn't say, can I hold you? I sometimes would, but usually I could tell by her body language if she was open to it or not. So if I saw that she was obviously not open to it, like she was kind of, leaning into her mama, then I wouldn't even ask. But if it looked like she was trying to get to me and was interested in me and leaning towards me, then I would say it, can I hold you? And then if she puts her arms out and leans forward, that that's a yes. And then I can pick her up and hold her. So respect babies.
So often she would do that and then she would immediately kind of like go back and try and grab me again. And that's a fun thing. I think she's testing that. Are you going to be an adult that
respects my autonomy?
Respects my autonomy. Are you going to hand me back? Are you going to let me go back to my mom? Or are you going to keep holding me? And that's really important to remember because this can go with a lot of different things where the child might start getting upset and you may go, okay, well, why don't we just go outside? We might take them further away from the parent or the person that they want to be or whatever they're doing, thinking that, oh, this will distract them and then they'll be happy. And I really want to keep holding you, right? I mean, I know people love to hold babies, but.
Oh, and I think, I don't know if we've talked about this, but don't distract our kids. Trying to distract our kids is so disrespectful. And it's also, again, insulting their intelligence. So that's when you take a baby like that's crying, and you put something shiny and flashy in front of them or go, hey, look over here. Don't think about that. Don't do that. Just, it's okay that they're upset about the thing that they're upset about. And if it's something they can do, let them do it. And if it's not, then empathize with them. I was going to say one thing that is important to me. with babies and toddlers especially, I would say be very mindful of tickling. I know tickling is a popular thing that people do to kids and babies because it's really cute to see them laugh. And when they're laughing, you think that they're having a good time. But I actually think tickling is kind of a violent act if it's not consensual. So I do not tickle my kids at all unless they want to be tickled, and they will ask for it. Like I used to actually, my kids are a little bit older now, so they're over that. They don't really do that anymore.
Right.
But Barbara, my niece and nephew, are young enough where they like that. And so with both of them, actually recently, I played a game with them where they were laying down and they would put their feet up to my face and I would Zerber their feet, which is, the thing where you blow air against the skin and it makes that like fart noise and it tickles. And so they would put their feet on my mouth, which was, to me, that meant that they were consenting to the tickle, and I would blow on their feet and they would laugh and move their feet away. And when they were ready for it again, they'd put their feet on my mouth. So I feel like then that's consensual tickling, but don't tickle kids without getting clear consent. It's just it violates their autonomy, and not every kid likes it. And if they're just because they're laughing does not mean they're having fun. I remember like getting in, tickling when we were kids. Our mom was also very strict on autonomy and tickling. But I remember sometimes laughing so hard and not being able to breathe and not even being able to say stop, even though I wanted to stop. So just really be careful with that, and don't let anyone tickle. Anytime someone tries to tickle my kid, I get really, I get weird about it. Like it just is weird.
It is weird. And I actually think that's a pretty suspicious thing. If somebody's trying to tickle your child and your child's obviously uncomfortable, that's a person to be a little bit weary of. I wouldn't leave my child with someone who is doing them. I wouldn't trust them. So I don't really want to get too into that, but that's a very suspicious behavior.
Yes.
I'm talking about adults, right? Another kid's doing that, it might just, kids get, and then I would probably separate the kids. I'd be like, oh, it looks like they want to stop. And I would physically separate, and I'd stop. And I've even done this with my 2-year-old, likes to make our 1-year-old laugh, and I have to stop him sometimes. And I'll say, oh, Crane, are you okay with that? Are you comfortable? Do you want Heron to keep going? And she's very clear. She'll go, yeah. So, and then I'll let it go for a little while. And I always stop if I think that someone might be uncomfortable, or if it's going on for a while and I think there might be a trouble communicating, right? So of course, always step in with young children if you think that one child is uncomfortable. And because sometimes children don't necessarily know how, even a little bit older ones that are verbal don't necessarily always feel comfortable saying stop, because let's say it's a new friend,
or they don't know. Or they don't know how they feel about it. Like they might need some time to process it. So if you see something that makes you uncomfortable, you can ask the kids to stop if they're old enough. And if they do, that's great. But definitely be prepared to get physically separate them, and just check in with the child that looks like you're concerned about, and say, and sometimes I check in with both kids. Sometimes it's like a wrestling game, and both kids can, wrestle, and that can get out of hand, but it's also very fun for kids. I remember playing wrestling games when I was a kid too. I think it's really good for brain development. But you need to make sure that everyone feels safe doing it. So I might go in and say, hey, are you both enjoying this game? Are you having fun? And I look at each one individually and say, like, are you having fun? And then I get a yes. Are you having fun? Yes. Okay then. And then I usually step back and keep an ear and eye out for if it sounds like it's going too far.
Yeah.
And I might check in again.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's so important. It's so important when we violate this autonomy unnecessarily, and when we allow people to violate our children's autonomy through things like tickling or like picking up our child when they don't want to be picked up, and again, if it's not necessary, um, instances like that, it's teaching our child that their body doesn't matter. What they want with their body doesn't matter, and that's exactly the opposite of what we want our children to learn. It's not fair. Adults can't just go in and do whatever they want, and I think there's pretty obvious things you want your child to be able to say no. You want to empower your child to say no, and the way you empower them is by respecting them when they say no. And of course, barring the examples that we said, if they're saying no to get into the car seat to go somewhere, you might need to do that. But other instances, picking them up and they go, no, 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 and they're kicking and wanting back down. And, you don't need to teach them that you are the boss and they need to do whatever you say. That's not fair and it's not right. Or you give them a kiss on the head and they say, don't kiss me. And you're like, oh, come on. Like, just one more kiss and I'll give you X. Those are kinds of things that are really unhealthy, and you're teaching your child that their preference doesn't matter, and it does.
Right. Or give grandma a kiss. Hello or goodbye or a hug. Don't make your kids hug and kiss relatives. Just respect their body autonomy as much as possible. And like this happened with our kid's grandmother. She came and lived with us for a while, and my kids never for the longest time didn't want to like hug or kiss her, and she felt upset about it because she was raised a different way. And I know she loves them so much, and she wanted to show that affection towards them, but she would say things and try and guilt them into doing it. And what's interesting is it made them trust her less, and it took them longer to warm up to her. Just accept what the child says, step back, and when they're ready for it, they will come to you, and they'll come to you when they feel safe, and they will not feel safe if they feel like they're being manipulated. They're smart, and they know when they're being manipulated. Stop manipulating kids.
I think like holding candy. I've seen this before. You want this? Okay, you just have to give me a hug first. And I know you're right. Relatives are very well-meaning when this is the case. I would step in those instances and say, oh, they don't look like they're ready for a hug yet. They'll let you know when they're ready, but I think they want that candy, something along those lines. It's nothing should ever be kind of held over them in that way. It's icky and it's not fair. It's just simply not fair. You wouldn't do it to another adult either. And if you do that to another adult, that's icky.
That's a red flag right there.
It's a big red flag. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. That's a foundation for a toxic relationship right there. And we don't want to teach our kids about that. We want to model healthy relationships for our kids, and the best way to do that is to have a healthy relationship with them. And so, it's a lot of these rules. It's just the same. Like, just treat them like people with respect.
Yeah, and
it's harder because they're young.
It is
and they can't reason like an adult can. But that's just part of the fun of being a parent and working with kids.
And we love affection from our children. And I know our relatives love affection from the children, and it can be really hurtful when they're not giving hugs or kisses, and the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles really want that. But it's so much more meaningful when it comes spontaneously. And I think that's something to keep in mind, because when we coerce it out of them, it doesn't really feel genuine because it's not genuine. And when it just comes spontaneously from their heart, they really mean it. Like, there's really a lot of like love and connection and warmth when they show us affection without us coercing it out of them. So don't coercing do that to your children, and don't let other people do that to your children. Sorry, go ahead.
And I just want to be clear that coercing kids, we are completely against, and coercing them is something as small as oh, come on, please, grandma hasn't seen you in forever and she feels so sad. That is a manipulative tactic. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You just ask, oh, do you want to give a hug or a kiss? No. Okay. End of sentence right there.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to push it. Okay. That's fine.
Yep. 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 Don't. And like, okay, I just want to go back to that example right there, because not only are you trying to guilt your child into violating their body autonomy, but you are also sending them the message that someone else's feelings are their responsibility.
Yeah.
And I know that messes up a lot of, like, as an adult, I still struggle with that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, don't do that to our kids, please.
No, it's not fair at all. Well, on that note, I thought this was a really fun conversation. And
me too.
I think we touched on a few things in there that I was like, I need to write that down because that's going to be a good episode. And I just kept thinking about, other things outside of autonomy that kept coming up that I want to talk about. So, I'm excited for some future episodes. So hopefully you tune in and like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're listening to. Share with a friend if this is useful to you. Maybe you know somebody that's about to have a kid or has thought about having kids, or they have kids. Send it along to them, and don't hesitate to reach out to us too if you have questions. You can always email us at questions@parentingtrap.com. Yeah, that's about it.
And that's it.
Thanks
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Bye.